Everyone mocked the alien woman. Everyone was shocked when a human took her hand. The station hung in the void like a shining jewel, its long arms reaching out to welcome ships from hundreds of worlds. Metal corridors twisted like the veins of some giant creature, and lights of every color flickered along the walls. Everywhere, beings of different shapes and sizes moved, some with wings, some with scales, some with multiple eyes that glimmered like stars. The air was thick with the hum of engines, chatter, and the occasional warning siren. It was a place where the strong spoke loud and the weak stayed silent, or at least tried. Lyra stepped out of her small shuttle. She was not tall. Her skin was a soft shade of green that glimmered faintly in the station lights. Her eyes were wide, a deep golden color that seemed to see too much, and her hands were delicate and long-fingered. She wore simple clothing, patched in places, and carried a small satchel filled with her notes and tools. She had traveled far beyond her world to this station to speak before the council. Her people had asked her to plead for help. Her people were dying, and only the council could offer aid. As Lyra walked through the bustling corridor, aliens noticed her immediately. Some stopped and stared. Others whispered behind their hands, laughter hidden in the echoes of their voices. A small group of insect-like traders nudged each other and pointed. "Look at her," one said in a high-pitched tone. "She comes here like she belongs." The others laughed. "Does she even know how the council works?" another asked. Lyra kept walking, her head held straight. She had learned to ignore the laughter. She had no choice but to be brave. Humans were few on the station, but one of them noticed her. Ethan Cole was a low-ranking human envoy. He was not tall either, and his hair was a dark brown that fell over his forehead. His eyes were calm, but alert. He had learned quickly that the strongest and the loudest usually got respect on this station, but he had also learned to see more than the surface. When he saw Lyra walking quietly, unfazed by the whispers and stares, he felt a twinge of curiosity and concern. He had seen aliens mocked before, but something about her made him pause. She did not look defeated. She looked determined. Lyra entered the council hall. It was enormous, shaped like a half-sphere, with seats rising like steps around a central platform. Representatives from dozens of worlds sat in their places. Some had long, flowing robes, some wore metallic armor, some simply rested on mats. Their voices echoed as they argued over trade routes, resources, and politics. When Lyra stepped onto the platform, a hush fell over the room for a moment. Then, whispers started again. "Who is she?" "Another weakling from a dying planet. She is too small to matter." The words stung, but Lyra stayed still. She opened her mouth to speak. Her voice was soft but steady. She explained her mission carefully, outlining how her world's core systems were failing and how her people had knowledge that could help the council. She presented her ideas with clear logic, showing diagrams and notes she had carried from her home. At first, some members of the council leaned forward, curious, but then others began to snicker. "She cannot even stand properly in front of us," one said. "How can she expect to convince anyone?" another added. A large alien with 3 heads laughed in a low, rumbling tone. "Her people are nothing. She is nothing. Why waste our time?" Lyra did not respond to the insults. She continued to explain, her hands moving over the diagrams, her eyes scanning the council members. She had hoped for attention to her words, not her appearance. But the council was not kind. Their mocking continued, and soon even some of the younger representatives joined in, laughing openly at her small body, her strange accent, and her patched clothes. Lyra's calm did not waver. She had expected ridicule, but it still hurt to see so many dismiss her before she even finished. Ethan sat among the human observers, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. He saw the council's behavior and knew it was wrong. Many of the humans around him shrugged, afraid to speak. No one wanted to upset the powerful aliens who controlled the station, but Ethan could not just watch. He leaned forward in his seat, noting every insult, every mocking gesture. He noticed how Lyra's hands shook slightly as she tried to hold a pointer. Her voice wavered only for a moment, then grew steady again. He admired her courage, and he decided he could not remain silent. The council finally dismissed her. One of the tallest representatives, a species with long, twisting horns, slammed his clawed hand on the table. "Enough," he bellowed. "We have heard enough from this creature. She will leave, and we will discuss only what matters." The gavel-like sound echoed through the chamber. Lyra nodded, collecting her notes and stepping down from the platform. The hall erupted in laughter once more as she exited. Whispers followed her down the corridor, mocking her every step. Some even shouted after her, making cruel jokes about her people. Lyra walked toward the station docks, alone. She did not cry. She had learned to carry her pride quietly. She found a bench near the windows and sat, watching ships come and go. Her people's fate weighed heavily on her, but she knew she could not give up. If she faltered now, everyone she loved would suffer. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply, letting the hum of the station calm her nerves. Ethan followed her after a short while. He had wanted to see her safe after the council's cruelty. He approached slowly, hands relaxed and open, showing he meant no harm. "Hello," he said softly, not wanting to startle her. "My name is Ethan. You did well in there." Lyra opened her eyes, surprised that someone spoke kindly to her. She studied him carefully, unsure if he was mocking her as well. But his voice was calm, sincere. She nodded slightly. "Thank you," she replied. "Most do not think I did well." Her voice was quiet but firm. Ethan could hear the courage in her tone, the quiet pride she carried despite the humiliation. He felt respect grow for her instantly. He sat a short distance away, careful not to crowd her. "I do not understand why they laughed," he said. "You explained everything clearly. You spoke with truth." Lyra tilted her head, a small smile breaking through. She had not expected anyone to defend her. Ethan asked her to tell her story. She spoke about her world, a small planet on the edge of inhabited space. She described dying forests, failing cities, and a people who had lost hope. She explained that her ancestors had developed technologies long forgotten by most species, and that she hoped to bring knowledge to the council to save what remained. Ethan listened closely, never interrupting. The simple act of listening made Lyra feel seen for the first time in days. Some aliens passed by the docks and noticed them. Whispers started again. Is that a human talking to her? What is he doing? Does he not know better? Ethan ignored them. He continued to listen. He asked questions politely, learning more about her people and their knowledge. Lyra, encouraged by his attention, explained her plans in detail. She did not need to raise her voice. She did not need to demand respect. She simply spoke the truth. Ethan nodded and asked clarifying questions, showing that he valued her words. As the conversation went on, Ethan did something small but meaningful. He placed his hand gently over hers. Lyra froze for a moment, unsure how to react. It was not a gesture of possession or command, but one of support. He wanted her to know that someone believed in her, even if the council did not. For the first time that day, Lyra felt a spark of hope. She could face the station, face the council, and fight for her people with someone by her side who truly understood. The station continued its endless movement outside the window. Ships glimmered against the black of space. Lyra looked at Ethan and nodded. Together, they would find a way to make her people's voices heard. She did not know how yet, but she felt a quiet strength. The laughter and mockery of the council felt distant now, almost irrelevant. One human hand on hers had changed the way she saw the world. As they sat in silence, watching the ships, Ethan thought about the power of belief. He thought about how easy it was for the strong to dismiss the weak, and how often courage went unnoticed. Lyra's courage was quiet, steady, and unwavering. He could see it clearly. And he knew that for the first time, someone had truly stood beside her. The day faded slowly as station lights dimmed in some areas and brightened in others. Lyra gathered her notes and prepared to leave the docks, knowing she had much to do. Ethan offered to walk with her and she accepted. The mockery and laughter of others were still out there, but they felt smaller now. With someone who believed in her, she felt ready to face the challenges ahead. Together, they moved through the corridors. Each step was quiet but confident. For the first time, Lyra did not feel invisible. She did not feel weak. She felt seen. And that was the first step toward changing not only her fate but the fate of her people. The story of the alien woman no one respected had begun, and a single human hand had made all the difference. Part 2. The human who refused to laugh. The station never slept. Lights hummed, engines roared, and the corridors always carried voices in dozens of languages. Lyra and Ethan walked side by side through one of the quieter passages. She had kept her head high despite the council's ridicule, but now she felt a little lighter with Ethan beside her. It was strange, she thought, that someone from a strong species like humans could show respect when so many others only mocked. "Thank you for walking with me," Lyra said softly. Her voice was calm, but there was a hint of relief in it. Ethan glanced at her and smiled gently. "I wanted to," he replied. "I don't like seeing anyone treated like that, especially not someone who has a message that matters." Lyra nodded. She kept her satchel close, holding it like a shield. Most people on this station do not care about small worlds. They think they are unimportant. My people, we are small, quiet. It is easy to ignore us. "That's not fair," Ethan said. He shook his head. "Size or strength should not decide who gets respect. I can see what you know is valuable, and that is what counts." They reached a small observation deck. It overlooked the docking bays, and dozens of ships of different shapes floated in the black space beyond. The stars reflected off the metal hulls, and Lyra took a deep breath. She had seen ships like this before, but the station was different from the quiet, empty ports of her home. Everything here felt alive, chaotic, and at times cruel. "I don't know why anyone would mock me," she said quietly. "I only wanted to speak the truth." "Is it really so strange to speak with honesty?" "Sometimes," Ethan said slowly, "the truth is hard for people to hear. It makes them uncomfortable, so they laugh or insult instead of listening." He looked at her, serious but kind. "You did not deserve what happened. But you handled it better than most would have." Lyra's eyes softened. She had grown used to judgment in her life. People often assumed she was weak because she was quiet, because her people did not fight with weapons like others. But she had never expected someone to simply listen and believe in her. Ethan was different. She realized that for the first time, she was not explaining herself to defend her worth. She was explaining to share knowledge. They sat on a bench near the observation window. The silence stretched for a few moments, filled only by the hum of the station and the distant clanging of metal. Then Ethan leaned forward slightly. "Tell me about your world," he said. "I want to understand more, not to judge but to help if I can." Lyra looked at him, surprised by the sincerity. She had grown cautious around others. Some would only listen to find mistakes or mock her ideas, but Ethan's tone was patient, curious. She nodded. "My world is small," she began. "Our cities were built long ago, using techniques that others have forgotten. We once were a strong civilization, but now we face decay. Our forests are dying, our waters are poisoned, our machines fail because we no longer have resources. We have knowledge, but no one listens to a small, weak species." Ethan listened quietly, nodding occasionally. "And you came here because you hoped the council would help?" he asked. Lyra nodded. "Yes. I thought if they understood the value of our knowledge, they might send aid or at least protect us. But they laughed. They mocked me. They said I was nothing." She paused, looking down at her hands. "It hurt, even though I expected it. I wanted to believe that even in this station, truth mattered more than size or strength." Ethan placed a hand gently over hers again. She looked at him, startled at first, then relaxed. It was not a gesture of control, but of support. "Truth still matters," he said softly. "And some of us will hear it. I hear you." Lyra smiled faintly, a small warmth spreading in her chest. She had traveled across space, faced the Council, and carried the weight of her dying world. And now, for the first time, someone acknowledged her worth without asking for proof of power. They stayed on the deck, talking quietly. Lyra explained more about her people's knowledge, how they could repair old systems, purify water, and grow food in conditions that others considered impossible. She spoke of old energy networks, of devices forgotten by most species, of ways to predict natural disasters. Ethan asked questions, never interrupting, showing respect for her expertise. As they spoke, some station workers passed by. Whispers started again, small but noticeable. "Is that a human with her? He is walking with a weak alien. Humans always have to make trouble." Ethan ignored them. He had learned long ago that not all opinions mattered. Lyra also ignored them, focusing instead on the conversation. After a while, Ethan stood. "Come with me," he said. "I know someone who might help. They may listen to you better than the Council did." Lyra hesitated. She had little hope in most beings on the station, but Ethan's confidence was reassuring. She nodded, gathering her satchel. Together they walked through the busy corridors, passing towering aliens, traders, and technicians. Some stared at them, others whispered. The murmurs followed them, but neither of them flinched. They reached a small office near the administrative area. Ethan knocked lightly. A young human engineer opened the door. Her name was Claire, and she was quick to smile. Ethan introduced Lyra, explaining briefly what had happened at the council. Claire listened carefully, her eyes widening in surprise. "They laughed at you?" she asked. "Why?" "Because I am not strong," Lyra said simply. "Because my people are small and quiet. Because truth is less important than appearance and power here." Claire shook her head. "That's wrong. You know that, right?" Lyra nodded. "I know, but knowing is not enough. I need someone to help me be heard." Ethan turned to her. "You will be heard," he said. "We will make sure of it, one way or another." He looked at Lyra and offered his hand again. She took it this time without hesitation. It felt like a promise, a quiet pact that neither would break. They spent hours in the office, going over Lyra's notes, checking her diagrams, and testing ideas with simple equipment. Ethan asked questions that helped her clarify points. Claire helped where she could, impressed by the alien woman's knowledge. For the first time, Lyra felt that her ideas were not just seen, but understood. As the hours passed, news of a small system failure reached the station. A critical energy conduit was flickering, and some ships were already reporting malfunctions. Panic started to spread. Other aliens rushed by, worried and shouting. Ethan looked at Lyra. "This might be our chance," he said. "Your knowledge could help. Will you try?" Lyra's eyes lit up. "If you will stand with me," she said. Ethan nodded firmly. "I will." Together they prepared to leave the office and approach the failing system. Other humans stayed behind, unsure if it was safe. Some aliens sneered, thinking it would be impossible for a small, quiet species like Lyra to fix the problem. But Ethan ignored them. He only focused on her. As they walked to the energy core, Lyra explained each step carefully. She knew that others would judge every move, but she felt calm with Ethan beside her. The human's quiet belief in her gave her confidence she had not felt before. She reached the core, a large circular hub of wires and lights, and studied the problem. She pointed to areas that needed attention and instructed Ethan on simple tasks. Together, they began the first stage of repair. Station workers and other aliens stopped to watch. Some laughed quietly at first, thinking the attempt foolish. But Lyra's hands were steady, her voice calm, her instructions clear. Ethan followed exactly, showing that he trusted her guidance completely. Slowly, the conduit stabilized. Lights stopped flickering, alarms quieted. The system hummed steadily again. A stunned silence filled the area. Aliens who had mocked her just hours ago could not believe what they saw. A small, quiet alien woman had saved the station's energy system. Ethan gave her a small nod, and Lyra smiled faintly. She had done more than fix a machine. She had earned the first real respect she had ever known. And yet, she knew the work was far from over. The council still had to recognize her people, and the station still had much prejudice to overcome. But for now, with a human at her side who refused to mock, she felt a spark of hope. One hand, one act of belief, had begun to change everything. The station buzzed with tension. Lights flickered in some corridors, alarms rang quietly in others, and the hum of engines seemed sharper, more anxious. Reports came in from ships docked across the station. The main energy conduit was unstable, and several smaller systems were failing as well. Engineers ran from one panel to another, trying to keep power steady, but no modern species could stop the cascading failures. Panic spread quickly. Lyra stood beside Ethan near the main energy hub. Her small hands moved over her notes as she studied the complex system of lights, wires, and controls. She had spent hours earlier showing Ethan how her people's old techniques could stabilize the system. Now, she realized, it was time to act. The station depended on her knowledge. She felt her heart beat faster, not with fear but with determination. "We can do this," she said quietly. Ethan looked at her with calm assurance. "We will do this," he said. "And I will stay with you the whole time." His voice gave her strength. She nodded and began explaining the first steps to the humans and other species who had gathered. She kept her tone steady and clear. She knew that the council would not listen to her words alone, but action could not be ignored. As she spoke, a few aliens snickered in the background. "What can a small, weak alien do that our engineers cannot?" one said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Others laughed quietly, shaking their heads. Lyra ignored them. She had learned long ago that the loudest voices did not always know the most. She focused on the system, her hands moving with precision over panels that no one had touched in decades. Ethan stood beside her, following her instructions carefully. He did not speak over her or doubt her methods. Instead, he trusted her completely, doing each task as she described. Some humans in the control room murmured quietly. "Isn't that dangerous?" one asked. Ethan shook his head. "She knows what she is doing. Watch and learn." The words surprised the others. Many humans had been taught to rely on their own technology, not the forgotten techniques of a small alien species. Ethan believed differently. The station grew quieter, as if even the alarms waited to see what would happen. Lyra adjusted an old conduit that connected to the energy core, using a tool that looked simple but was perfectly suited for the task. Sparks jumped briefly, then disappeared. The lights flickered once more, then steadied. She pointed to a series of valves and circuits, explaining how they would redirect energy to balance the load. Ethan worked alongside her, steady and careful. Some engineers tried to intervene, thinking they could do it faster. Lyra calmly asked them to step back. "Your modern methods will overload the system," she said. "Trust me, these older techniques are safer." Some laughed quietly, doubting her, but Ethan nodded firmly, showing that he trusted her guidance completely. Slowly, the engineers stopped, watching as the small alien woman took control of the crisis. Minutes stretched into hours. Lyra moved from panel to panel, checking each connection, correcting minor faults, and explaining each action to Ethan. Together, they created a rhythm, a silent understanding that flowed between them. The energy levels began to stabilize. Lights that had flickered dimly now shone steadily. Alarms that had screamed softly fell silent. The station hummed again with smooth, steady power. A crowd had gathered to watch. Some were human, others alien. The ones who had mocked her at the council could not believe what they were seeing. A small, quiet alien woman who had been dismissed and laughed at had saved the station. Ethan stood proudly beside her, calm and respectful, showing everyone that her knowledge mattered. Whispers filled the room. not mocking this time but curious, surprised, and even admiring. The largest alien in the room, a three-headed being with scales that shimmered like metal, stepped forward. He had sneered at Lyra earlier. Now his mouth fell silent as he studied her hands moving over the panels. "How?" one of his heads asked. "She cannot, she is too small," another head murmured. "I thought she would fail." The third head remained quiet, but its eyes softened. For the first time he saw that strength and size were not the only measures of skill or courage. Lyra finished the final adjustments. She stepped back and breathed deeply, her eyes scanning the hub. The system was stable. The hum of the engines felt steady again. Ships docked safely, alarms quieted, and lights returned to full brightness. She looked at Ethan and nodded, a faint smile on her face. "It is done," she said simply. Ethan smiled back. "You did it," he said. "I told you we would do it together." She shook her head. "I did it. You helped me. That makes it stronger." The words were quiet, but they carried the weight of gratitude, respect, and shared victory. The council representatives who had mocked her were silent now. Some stared in disbelief. Others whispered among themselves. The tall, horned alien who had slammed his claw on the table shook his head slowly. "Perhaps we underestimated her," he said finally. The words were soft, cautious, but they carried an acknowledgement that could not be ignored. Some of the younger representatives who had laughed openly looked embarrassed. They had joined the mockery without understanding, and now they had to face the reality of Lyra's skill. Whispers spread through the hall. She saved the station. She knew exactly what to do. Why did we ever laugh? The laughter that had followed her before was replaced by quiet admiration and in some shame. Ethan remained calm throughout. He did not take credit, nor did he boast. He simply stood beside Lyra, showing the council that respect could be quiet and strong at the same time. He did not need to shout, argue, or threaten. He only needed to show belief in her, and that belief had allowed her to shine. Lyra looked around the room. She saw faces filled with surprise, some with respect, and a few with doubt still lingering. She understood that not everyone would change overnight. Prejudice and assumptions were not erased by a single act. But she also saw that action spoke louder than words. She had proof now. She had stabilized the station, and her people's knowledge was undeniable. "We should report this to the council," Ethan said after a while. Lyra nodded. She knew it would be difficult. Some members would try to downplay her role. Others would pretend that it was luck. But she was ready. She had done more than save a system. She had earned a voice. She had shown that even a small, quiet species could have power when knowledge and courage were combined. They walked back to the council hall together. The corridors were still busy, but now the whispers were different. Some aliens pointed at Lyra with a mixture of respect and disbelief. Others simply stared. No one laughed. Ethan walked beside her, hand close but not holding hers this time. He wanted her to feel independent as well as supported. When they entered the council hall, a hush fell. The representatives looked at her with new eyes. Lyra stepped to the front, calm and steady. She did not need to raise her voice. She simply presented the facts of what had happened. The system had been stabilized. No ships had been lost. The station was safe. The humans and aliens who had observed her now confirmed her skill. The evidence was undeniable. The horned alien cleared his throat. "It seems we were wrong," he said slowly. "Perhaps her people have knowledge that deserves recognition." Some representatives nodded, others shifted uneasily. The council could not ignore what had been done in front of them. Action had spoken louder than mockery, and the evidence was before their eyes. Lyra remained quiet, allowing Ethan to stand slightly behind her as she spoke. She did not need a protector, but she appreciated the support. The human's calm presence made the council realize that this was not just luck or coincidence. Someone had believed in her before she proved herself, and that belief had mattered. When the session ended, a few members approached her. They offered tentative words of praise, awkward and unsure. Lyra accepted them politely but focused on the one person who had mattered most, Ethan. He had stood beside her when no one else would. He had refused to laugh. He had refused to doubt. And because of that, she had been able to succeed. Outside the hall, Lyra and Ethan paused near the observation deck. The station lights reflected off the windows, shimmering like stars. Lyra looked at him and smiled faintly. "Thank you," she said. "Not for helping me fix the system, but for believing in me when no one else did." Ethan smiled back quietly. "I did not do much," he said. "I just refused to laugh. You did all the work." Lyra shook her head. "You did more than you know. Standing beside me made all the difference. It showed me that not everyone sees the world only by power and size." She looked out at the docking bays, thinking of her people, her world, and the long journey ahead. "This is only the beginning." Ethan nodded. "And we will face it together." He offered his hand once more, a quiet reminder of the trust and belief that had brought them this far. Lyra took it, feeling the weight of hope and courage in a simple human gesture. Together, they would show the station that knowledge and truth could matter more than mockery and strength. The crisis was over, but the story of the small, quiet alien woman who had saved a station was only beginning. One hand, one belief, and one act of courage had revealed the truth that many had ignored. And now, the station would never look at her the same way again. The energy system had stabilized, and the station slowly returned to normal. Ships docked without interruption, engines hummed evenly, and alarms no longer rang. The council had been forced to acknowledge Lyra's skill, though their praise was cautious and uneven. Whispers of surprise filled the halls. Some representatives avoided looking at her, embarrassed by their earlier mockery. Others watched with curiosity, unsure if the small, quiet alien could do more than this one impressive act. Lyra walked through the corridors with Ethan beside her. Her steps were calm, deliberate, and confident, though she still felt a quiet tension. The council had recognized her skill, but she could see that not all respect was genuine. Some smiled at her politely, others avoided eye contact, and a few still muttered under their breath about her small size and quiet voice. She understood that action could earn respect, but it could not erase prejudice entirely. "Do they truly respect me?" she asked Ethan quietly as they walked past a group of insect-like traders. One trader whispered something and the others chuckled. Ethan glanced at them, then back at Lyra. "Some may never truly respect you," he said simply. "But those who matter, the ones who saw what you did, they do. That is enough to start." Lyra nodded. She had hoped for full recognition, but she understood the limits of change. She had proven herself with action, not words, and that would carry further than any council announcement. She felt a quiet pride, knowing she had acted for her people, not for herself. She glanced at Ethan, feeling gratitude. He had believed in her before anyone else, refused to laugh at her, and now stood calmly beside her as the station adjusted to the truth. As they approached the council chamber again, a few representatives called out to Lyra. "We would like your advice on other systems," one said. Another added, "Perhaps your people's methods could help in other departments." Lyra listened politely. She appreciated the acknowledgement, but she could see that some of the praise was more about appearances than genuine belief. She chose to focus on those who had seen her skill firsthand, especially Ethan. Inside the chamber, Lyra began assisting with smaller systems that had been neglected for years. She showed how to use old techniques to repair energy grids, purify water, and maintain life support systems. Some council members watched in amazement, realizing the practical knowledge she had brought from her world. Ethan stayed beside her, quietly following instructions and showing that he trusted her completely. His calm presence reminded everyone that respect did not have to be loud to be real. Some representatives began asking her questions. They wanted to understand the techniques she used, hoping to apply them elsewhere. Lyra explained patiently, using simple words and clear demonstrations. She noticed the way some older aliens leaned forward, studying her hands, noting how precise her movements were. The younger representatives who had once laughed were quiet now, learning instead of mocking. But not everyone was happy. A few members whispered among themselves, accusing Ethan of breaking protocol by supporting a small, quiet alien. Humans should not interfere with council matters, one hissed. Why is he walking beside her? Why does he trust her? Ethan ignored them. He knew that supporting someone with knowledge and courage was more important than following every rule. He had learned that rules could be wrong if they suppressed truth and fairness. One council member approached and said, "You risked much by standing with her." What if she had failed? Ethan looked calmly at the alien. Then I would have helped her try again. Respect is not about winning the first time. It is about standing beside someone when it matters most. The alien studied him, silent for a moment, then nodded slowly. Some of the others shifted uncomfortably. Ethan's simple words carried more weight than any speech the council could make. Lyra continued her work, showing more techniques from her people's knowledge. She guided technicians in repairing life support modules and restoring older energy conduits. Each success built her reputation, and the station slowly began to see her as a valued expert. Whispers of admiration replaced the earlier laughter. Even some who had doubted her skill began to offer help or ask for her advice. Despite these changes, Lyra felt that the council's respect was incomplete. Many were eager to claim credit for her work, praising her only in words while ignoring the courage and skill that had made it possible. She turned to Ethan one evening as they walked through a quiet corridor. "They do not truly believe in me," she said softly. "They will praise my work, but they do not understand me. They will still judge by size, strength, or appearance." "That is true for some," Ethan agreed. "But there are others who see clearly now. Those are the ones who matter. Do not waste energy on the rest." He paused, looking at her. "You have changed more than the council realizes. You have changed the way some people see the world." Lyra nodded, feeling a quiet sense of determination. She understood that change was slow and respect could not be forced, but she also knew that her actions had opened doors. Her people's knowledge could now be valued, and she had allies who would support her, even when others refused. As the night grew quiet, they returned to the observation deck. The stars shimmered against the black of space, and Lyra felt a calm settle over her. She looked at Ethan, grateful for his steady presence. "You stood with me when no one else would," she said. "That mattered more than anything." "I only did what felt right," Ethan said. "Sometimes that is all it takes." He offered his hand. Lyra took it, feeling a quiet bond that went beyond words. It was trust, respect, and shared purpose, all in a simple gesture. The next day, the council scheduled a meeting to discuss how to integrate Lyra's knowledge into station operations. She would be invited to advise on multiple departments. She prepared carefully, knowing that some representatives still harbored doubt or resentment. Ethan remained beside her, quietly supporting her as always. His presence reminded the council and other observers that she had allies who believed in her before she proved herself, and that her voice mattered. As Lyra presented her ideas, showing practical solutions for energy management, water purification, and life support optimization, some council members whispered in awe. "We underestimated her," one said. "How could we doubt someone so skilled?" Others nodded, realizing that their earlier mockery had been foolish. The younger representatives who had once laughed openly now listened intently, learning from her example. Even with growing respect, some tensions remained. A few representatives argued that the council should not rely on the knowledge of a small species, that modern technology alone should be sufficient. Ethan calmly intervened. "Modern technology fails when wisdom is ignored," he said. "We cannot dismiss knowledge simply because of the source. She has proven the value of her people's understanding." His simple words carried authority, and the room fell quiet. Many realized he was right. Lyra felt a quiet sense of triumph, but she did not boast. She continued to explain her methods, guiding engineers and technicians patiently. Each demonstration strengthened her reputation, and her people's knowledge slowly gained the recognition it deserved. The station was safer, more efficient, and more resilient because of her efforts. By evening, the council adjourned. Lyra and Ethan walked to the observation deck once more, watching the ships glide through the dark void. "We did more than fix systems today," Lyra said quietly. "We showed that courage and knowledge matter more than appearances and mockery." "Yes," Ethan agreed. "And you taught them that respect should be earned through truth and action, not laughter and fear. That lesson will last longer than any single repair." He offered his hand again. Lyra took it without hesitation. Together they stood in silence, watching the stars and the ships. The station was changing, slowly but surely. Whispers of mockery had faded, replaced by acknowledgement and curiosity. Lyra's people would be heard, her knowledge valued, and her courage remembered. In the quiet of the observation deck, Lyra realized that her journey was far from over. The council still held power, and some would resist the changes she represented. But she now had allies, proof of her skill, and the quiet, steady support of Ethan. One human had refused to laugh, and that single act had changed everything. As the night deepened, Lyra and Ethan prepared to leave the deck. The station lights reflected on their faces, shimmering like distant stars. She knew challenges lay ahead, but for the first time she felt a quiet confidence that she could face them. She had proven herself through action, earned respect where possible, and gained allies who believed in truth and courage. One hand, a quiet human hand beside hers, had made all the difference. Part 5. When one hand changed everything, the station was calm now. The energy system had stabilized, life support ran smoothly, and the lights shone evenly across the corridors. Lyra walked through the main halls, her steps steady and calm. She had spent weeks showing council members, engineers, and technicians how her people's knowledge could improve the station. Slowly, respect grew. Whispers of doubt and mockery had mostly disappeared. People now spoke her name with careful consideration. Ethan walked beside her as he always had. His presence was calm, steady, and reassuring. He had refused to laugh at her when others did. He had refused to doubt her skill when others mocked. He had stood quietly beside her, showing that belief in someone could be stronger than fear, laughter, or prejudice. For Lyra, his support had made all the difference. She knew she could face the council, the station, and the challenges ahead because he had trusted her. The council called a special session. Lyra had been asked to attend as an advisor. Her people's knowledge would now be recognized officially, and the council would vote on sending resources and protection to her dying world. She felt a mixture of pride and relief. At last, her people's voice would be heard. She had worked for this moment for years, and now it was coming true. She entered the council chamber, standing small but confident before the representatives. Ethan remained just behind her, quiet and respectful. Some council members tried to hide their surprise. A few had been the loudest in mocking her when she first arrived. Others shifted uncomfortably, now unsure how to respond. Whispers moved through the chamber like wind over water. "She saved the station. She knows more than we thought. We should have listened earlier." Lyra spoke calmly, clearly, and without arrogance. She outlined the challenges her people faced and the ways they could contribute to the station and beyond. She described their technologies, their knowledge of energy systems, agriculture, and water purification. Each word was precise. She did not raise her voice. She did not demand praise. She spoke truthfully, letting her knowledge show her worth. Ethan watched closely. He did not speak for her, but his steady presence reminded the council that someone had believed in her before she proved herself. The weight of that quiet support was visible to all. It gave her authority, not because he was human or strong, but because it showed trust and respect before recognition had been granted. A few council members who had once mocked her tried to offer words of praise. "We see now your contribution," one said, voice careful. "Your knowledge is valuable." Lyra accepted the words politely. She did not smile widely, for she knew respect must come from understanding, not fear or obligation. She turned slightly to Ethan, acknowledging him with a small nod. He nodded back. They both knew that without his belief, she might not have found the courage to face the council so fully. The vote began. Representatives debated quietly, weighing tradition against evidence. Some argued that her people were too small to be relevant. Others said that her knowledge had already saved the station, and that refusing help would be foolish. Finally, the decision was unanimous. Resources would be sent to her world. Her people would be protected, and their knowledge would be integrated into station operations. Lyra's quiet dignity had won where ridicule once ruled. After the council session, Lyra and Ethan walked to the observation deck. The ships outside glimmered against the black void of space. Lights reflected on the metal hulls, shimmering like stars. Lyra felt relief, pride, and hope all mixed together. She had accomplished what she had come to do. Her people would survive. Their knowledge would be honored, and she had learned that belief and support could matter more than laughter or mockery. Ethan spoke softly, breaking the quiet. "You did more than save systems and show knowledge," he said. "You taught the station how to see differently." "They will remember this," Lyra nodded. "I hope they will. Some may never truly change, but enough saw the truth to make a difference." She paused, looking out at the stars. "And you stood with me when no one else would. That mattered more than anything." Ethan smiled faintly. "I only refused to laugh," he said. "You did all the hard work." Lyra shook her head. "It was our work together. Your belief gave me courage. One hand, one quiet act of trust changed everything for me and my people." She reached out and held his hand. This time in front of the entire observation deck, in full view of other humans and aliens, she took his hand with certainty. It was a simple gesture, but it carried all the trust, respect, and quiet strength between them. People passing by stopped to watch. Some aliens whispered, surprised at the human standing beside the small alien woman with nothing but support in his eyes. No one laughed. Instead, they felt respect, curiosity, and perhaps a little shame for how they had judged her before. The station itself seemed to shift quietly, as if acknowledging that courage and knowledge mattered more than size or appearances. For the first time, Lyra felt fully seen, not as a small, quiet alien, but as someone whose knowledge, courage, and dignity could change worlds. Her people would live because she had spoken truth, acted wisely, and accepted help from a human who refused to mock. She had changed their perception, one small act at a time, and had earned the respect she deserved. Ethan squeezed her hand gently. "This is only the beginning," he said. "You will continue to help the station, your world, and others, and I will be here quietly as long as you want me." Lyra smiled softly. "Then we will face the challenges together." She looked out at the ships, imagining her home planet receiving the resources and protection it needed. She pictured her people learning new ways to grow food, purify water, and repair old systems. She imagined the pride in their eyes when they realized they were valued, not for strength or power, but for knowledge and courage. Together, they walked back through the corridors. Station workers paused to watch, whispering among themselves. "She is amazing," one said. "And the human he believes in her." Another added, "Perhaps respect is not about power, but about seeing truth." Lyra heard these words quietly. She felt hope that small actions could ripple outward, changing attitudes slowly but surely. Later on the observation deck, Lyra and Ethan stood silently, looking at the stars. They did not need words. One human hand in hers, a quiet act of trust and support, had changed everything. The council had acknowledged her people, the station had survived its crisis, and the universe had seen that courage, dignity, and knowledge could be stronger than mockery or fear. Lyra took a deep breath. "Thank you," she said once more. Not for saving the station, not for standing beside her, but for showing her that belief could be stronger than ridicule. Ethan smiled quietly. He only nodded. Words were not needed. They had already proven their meaning in actions. The station continued its endless movement, ships gliding through the void, lights flickering softly in the corridors. But the story of the small, quiet alien woman who had been mocked and the human who refused to laugh would live on. Their courage, dignity, and trust had changed perceptions, earned respect, and saved lives. One simple act of belief, had shown the universe the power of humanity and the strength of those who refuse to judge before seeing truth. As Lyra and Ethan watched the stars, side by side, the future seemed brighter, not because of technology or weapons, but because someone had chosen to see, to believe, and to stand quietly beside someone when it mattered most. The alien woman had finally been seen, and the human had quietly changed everything.